Max Elhash here. On this episode of the Corpus Animus Podcast, we took your questions and Kyle, Ruth, and myself answered them. If you're on the go and you want to listen to just the audio version, subscribe to the Corpus Animus Podcast on your favorite podcast app. Learn more about the art and science of program design for CrossFit in our online educational platform, The Classroom. Get a free 7-day trial at trainingthinktank.com/classroom trial.
All right, so I want to do an episode where we do Q&A. So I put up on our YouTube a poll, not a poll, but I said, hey, do you have any questions for a Q&A? And we got some questions.
Before we start this, if there's a question that both of us don't really have anything to add or answer, or we don't think it's a good question, should we say, dumb question, move on, or should we be politically correct?
I think one of y'all say dumb question, move on. The other one give us the political correct answer.
All right, we'll do exactly that.
All right. So let's just go through these. If this format sucks and you viewers and listeners at home hate this and don't want us to keep doing these, let us know. If you do like it, maybe leave a comment on the YouTube or shoot us an IM.
Instant messenger,
please.
Yeah, you know.
Can you do
what's your AOL Instant Messenger? What's your handle?
Let's start off with that. What was your first screen name you can remember, Max?
Minimex52.
KJ129.
AJ.
Oh, Kyle Jeffrey. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Weak.
Yeah.
All right.
What was yours, Chris? Man?
No judgment. Yeah.
What about my first AOL email was probably like Han Solo 45 or something like that. Anyway, all right. Let's start it off with a banger. Ready? Is CrossFit a place an obese person should join?
Is CrossFit a CrossFit gym a place? Sure.
Yeah. We'll answer it that way. I think absolutely. I mean,
yeah. Go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things that really does lead people to commit to exercise is having a community and having access to people who can guide their journey in some way. And I think CrossFit gyms in general tend to be places where that happens.
Yeah, I would say that I'd call it like a bell curve answer. You walk into 68% of the affiliates that you'd probably have a really good experience, because the reality is a lot of the movements for somebody obese will have to be scaled initially.
Absolutely.
And even just the overall workload from a medical health perspective, like development of some of the base level fitness qualities just to be able to sustain elevated heart rate for a period of time. There's I think there would be an introductory process of scaling and doing a proper assessment. And I think probably most CrossFit gyms would have that. But if you walk into an inexperienced CrossFit facility that doesn't have any experience,
even an overwhelmed CrossFit facility, one that's at its capacity and doesn't really have the ability to to scale effectively and do all that, I feel like that would be another issue.
So that's just the danger of doing it. But I would encourage anybody that's obese to just source it. Just walk into an affiliate, talk to their head coach, see what their initial process is, and pick one relative to what makes you comfortable and makes you feel like you're walking into a community of people that are going to help support you in the process. But I don't think that CrossFit as a discipline should exclude obese people.
If there are good coaches at the gym, they should be able to adjust workouts day to day on the fly that should be able to accommodate any level of fitness. Now, with that said, there's probably plenty of CrossFit gyms where you'd be better off going in, starting with some sort of personal training or one-on-one or small group or intro class or something like that. And then spending time with one person who's getting to know your fitness levels and then slowly integrate yourself into it. But I think a lot of that is just, there's so many it depends.
Yeah, that's just a danger of asking about CrossFit, because CrossFit has 15,000 affiliates and all of these different coaches that represent CrossFit with different ideologies and different experience levels. But at a big picture level, yes, strength training, energy system training, movement training to work on your balance, coordination, accuracy, all the stuff of CrossFit would be probably one of the best solutions for dealing with obesity.
I still hold that having a community and having coaches to help guide the journey is better than going in on your own, I would think.
Either of you actually worked one-on-one or in a group session with a obese person?
Yeah. Technically, I think I have actually been, I think the standard
through
is
BMI.
25% body fat.
I have no idea.
I think that's where the obesity target is. So technically I have been obese according to that. Yeah. I mean, I know the person who's asking that question is not, but yeah, I have worked with a lot more body composition people who were definitely were in the obese category, but I did that prior to really being involved in competitive CrossFit. So the strength training was more simple, dumbbell conditioning. It probably resembled more of a combination of bodybuilding and easy walking and lifestyle and diet interventions.
How about this? If you were to be approached by an obese person right now wanting to start CrossFit, how would you start them?
I would start with an assessment, like
Yeah.
I start every single one of my clients. It would be for every single person that I start with, regardless of where they're coming from. The first thing we would do is assessment, whether it would be a joint by joint screen or some form of. Actually, the very first thing I would do is have them go get physician's clearance, and that would be the very first thing, just to make sure that they're safe to begin an exercise program. Then we'd go through the assessment process.
Yeah, and I think for me, just knowing I've had a little bit of body composition issues myself and maybe body image issues as well, I think getting down to the root issue of a dialogue and understanding like why they're doing this, why it's important to them, what's going to keep them like steady on the path, what their real why is for doing it, who their support structure is, what usually leads them out of the behaviors that they know they need to adhere to, that kind of causes that process. And doing like a really thorough consult into my assessment, I think would be step one. And then after that, just start training.
I totally agree
All
with
right,
that.
that's good. Let's go to the next question. So it says your take on the Get With the Programming podcast. Do y'all know what that is?
No.
Me neither. But apparently there was a debate, and the debate was, what was more impressive, Austin Malleolo pulling 600-pound deadlift before running a marathon, or Adam Klink running a 5:12 mile before squatting 500 pounds?
I'd say the second. I mean, just having seen Austin Malleolo's anthropometrics and
He's literally built to deadlift. a
yeah,
house.
I mean, I'm not saying that I think deadlifting 600 pounds is just cool no matter what, but he's got like, I think they call it the ape index, like your arms relative to the rest
Never
of
heard
your
of that.
torso.
Please continue with
Yeah,
that. I'm very curious.
We're canceled.
Yeah, there it is. There's the end of it. His arms go down to like his knees. So total range of motion is not really like, it's like watching somebody 6'9"
So what you're saying
dunk.
is it's like me deadlifting essentially, because I'm 5'11" with a 6'3" wingspan.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes a big difference. So I would say that running a sub 5 minute mile and 500 pound back squat's a little bit more impressive to me.
I think I would agree with that. What I still would love to see I think it was Castro that put out the challenge that was 30 unbroken muscle ups all on the same day, 30 unbroken muscle ups, sub 5 minute mile, and a 500 pound back squat. I think that is still an incredibly impressive benchmark that I may be corrected on this, but I don't think anyone has achieved.
Yeah,
yet.
I would say Frazier would be somebody that would be able to do that, but he would probably need it to be like in a competitive setting. That'd be a hard thing to just do. I think Will told me that he can do like 36 unbroken muscle ups.
Will Morad?
Crazy.
Wait,
yeah, not
Will told you that
me
Morad
that
said
Frazier could. So
a friend of a friend.
I mean, and that I could have just reported that wrong. Will's probably going to text me and be like, I didn't tell you that. Yeah. So memory.
Hey, didn't you say Cedric did something cool?
Cedric is extremely close to that 30 unbroken. He can do 30 unbroken muscle ups. And when we finished his hatch cycle, he was squatting, I think 475 for a single. And I've seen him run a sub 5 minute mile.
Yeah.
The problem is it's all got to be done in the same day. And the other big problem is going from 475 back squat to 500 would require a massive deviation in his training.
Yeah.
Because that's something that will take him, to be honest, the way we train, probably 2 to 3 more years to close that gap if he ever does.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessary
Yeah.
to compete in the sport of CrossFit.
The other thing, going back to that question, why I don't necessarily think that the deadlift marathon is as impressive is unless they talked about it. Was there a pace on the marathon, or were you running like 10-minute miles? Like a 5-minute mile is a lot of output. So I'm not going to say that I would want to go run a marathon, but I'm not sure I should say this. I believe that I could go run a marathon. I also can't deadlift 600 pounds, but I believe there are plenty of people who can deadlift in the mid fives who could go just run. Travis is a good example. You know, I think he was just talking about this yesterday. At one point deadlifted 505 for 6. Yeah, something like that.
And he could easily go run a marathon fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there'd have to be a performance metric to it, like run 7:30s or something like that for a marathon, or run 8-minute miles for a marathon.
7:30s. That sounds really daunting to me.
All All right, we good on that one?
Yeah.
All right, so supplements worth spending. Oh, I should probably say the names of these people, huh? So Alex Person.
You shouldn't say the names if you can't pronounce them.
Sounds like me on the classroom Q&A.
I saw an invisible A in there for a second. All right, supplements worth spending money on for someone who wants to compete, not your everyday CrossFitter.
Someone who wants to compete, not your everyday CrossFitter. So someone who's a relatively elite level athlete. I would say, so I'm biased. I think first and foremost, creatine monohydrate is going to be a decent one, depending on what type of athlete you are, what your limiters are. I don't think for someone who's really strong already that creatine monohydrate is a particularly effective supplement as a CrossFitter. In fact, myself, as we would classify as like a delivery limited athlete in sort of our energy system model, creatine would just make me blow up. Like my handstand push-up max rep and my handstand push-up endurance would decrease when I would go on creatine versus being off creatine. So depending on the athlete, creatine could be a good option. I think baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, for the right athletes is a really, really valuable tool because it's a acid buffer. It can basically make it so that people can tolerate high intensity exercise for longer periods of time. It increases local tissue oxygen saturation. It can increase muscle oxygen saturation. So a lot of the things Evan talked about in the Energy System podcast, it plays a big role.
So who would and wouldn't take that?
Who would and wouldn't? Well, I would say this: if someone's a serious competitor and sodium bicarbonate or baking soda is something that they should consider playing with and determine whether or not, first off, their gut can handle it. Like, can they actually deal with?
Because it makes a lot of people poop their pants.
Exactly. That would be one factor. And then the other one is, do they actually notice a performance benefit? There are plenty of athletes who I work with who use it and they're like, man, I can tell when.
Or do you just like throw it in a shake or what?
It's real simple. You fill up a water bottle. I would recommend like 24 to 30 ounces of water with 1 teaspoon. Let me be very clear. 1 teaspoon, which is the small one, mixed in there. And then you do that 2 to 3 times a day. And you can do that pretty much chronically, throughout a season. And it's not.
Speaking of chronically, is that another supplement?
That's a supplement that I would recommend if you're not getting tested.
As long as you're not getting tested, I think you're probably all right there. But yeah, I think those two come to mind. And then outside of that, like filling in carbohydrate deficits for athletes that are struggling. You know, if someone is a coach at a gym and they coach hours and hours and hours throughout the day, then filling in some carbohydrate supplement might be a good option for them.
I have much more simple recommendations with regards to supplements. Like I know you can find a ton of research pretty much to support any supplement being good for supporting any goal. Like there's just an enormous amount of research out there and a lot of it's funded by people that are in the supplement world. So it's like very hard to whittle down what you need. I would say that the biggest issue that I see for most CrossFitters, if they're trying to compete and train at a really high volume, is a consumption of enough food to support training and especially carbohydrate. And you're trying to get your carbohydrate in a good source is really hard to do. So if you can get a high quality carb and protein mix as your post-workout, you can load post-workout a huge amount of your carbs in a way that has the least impact on body composition.
Even with that being said, and this is my own personal opinion, but I think, so there's so many different carbohydrate powders that exist, maltodextrin, dextrose, highly branched cyclic dextrin. There's all these things that can get really fancy. In the end, it's just a starch that your body's going to be breaking down. I still think that a better option is to make a smoothie full of things like blueberries, blackberries, like things that actually contain other nutrients that your body needs, and consuming those post-workout because they actually provide other function in the body other than just replacing carbohydrate stores, and they replace carbohydrate stores. But that's my own. My own
so
take.
I would agree with that. The one thing I would say is I know a lot of people are time limited. So like the idea of getting the berries, paying for the berries, blending them up, making the smoothies becomes a restrictor. So to bypass that, the second supplement strategy that I would tell people is get either some sort of a high quality multivitamin or a reds and a greens powder, mix those together with maybe some fiber and glutamine, things that can actually help with gut health, and just have that as kind of a daily thing for yourself. I mean, you're doing so much training and so much breaking of your body down and so much abuse or working out that just replenishing in large amounts, all a wide variety of stuff, I think is just a good, like, it's a good contingency plan. You don't really know for sure. And maybe if you got like some specific blood work, you could identify like you're missing X. But
so I was going to add to this, like if you are someone who's training in the heat frequently, then potentially some magnesium, zinc. I know that and I haven't read this research in a really long time, but there was some really solid research that like the things that are most commonly lost in sweat outside of your sodium and potassium are going to be zinc and magnesium. Those are the minerals that we lose the most of. And so if you're someone who's training in Atlanta, for example, right now in the middle of the summer, that might be a place to consider. But again, I would recommend going and getting, if you're a really high level performance athlete, and go get some blood work done, figure that out.
We just talked around in circles a little bit. So to summarize that, you had said, check out creatine and sodium bicarb. And then I would say a protein and carb supplement post-workout, and then some sort of multivitamin strategy. Mine personally, what I do is reds, greens, fiber, glutamine in a shake. And I just do that as a daily thing.
Yeah. And I'm going to add essential aminos to the list just because. All right. So,
thanks, Chris.
Yep. You're welcome. Next question is from It's Kokoi. Probably pronounced It's Kokoi. Now that you are a recognized platform,
were we not recognized before?
No.
With elite athletes,
platform.
Pause, boys. With elite athletes, perhaps it's not a problem, but when TTT began, how did you handle the fact that some athletes prefer to do X or Y programming and did not ask for your advice or coaching?
What?
He goes on to say,
okay.
I ask it in case somebody used to give group classes before. No, I don't know what he's saying. Do you know what he's saying on that first part?
I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confused because it seems like, how do you deal with the fact that some people don't want to do your programming?
Yeah, but I don't think he's talking about us. I think he's saying before we were a recognized platform. Like
before you had the cred and if you were told someone to do something.
Yeah. How do you convince them to do stuff?
How did you get the buy-in?
I have a very weird strategy, I think, for dealing with that. I make the assumption if you come to me for my help that you're going to listen to what I say and you're not going to argue with me about somebody else doing some other thing that I may or may not agree with. So people would come to me with this and I'll be like, do you want to do that? No? Then I don't know.
So
like,
if that's the question,
recommendation,
then my strategy is to convince them that it was their idea. And Max, you probably know very well. I'm actually very good at that. You're going to
give away your secrets, man.
I'm actually quite good at that. So no one that is coached by me right now, listen to what I just said, because everything that you're doing is definitely your own idea.
So he's trying to convince others that their ideas are your ideas.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Sorry, man. No. I don't know if that answered your question. It's Kokoi.
All right. So Danny Servin wants to know, do you think the Olympic lifts are a good test of strength in CrossFit? Or do you think that there should be more brute strength events at the games, such as the deadlift ladder in 2016 or the CrossFit total in 2018?
I like both. I think that I really do think, and I mean, I've talked at length about this in a podcast by myself with Chris, that there needs to be some uniform understanding of what we're testing for. But I think both raw, slow strength and technical speed strength or strength speed that comes with the barbell and snatch and clean and jerk are both really important characteristics. But I think there are other methods to test both. Like strongman could test slow lifting.
I would like to see more strongman style tests.
And they've done some, but it hasn't the volume. I think the volume of weightlifting relative to other strength disciplines has been too high and too skewed.
Why do you think that is?
Specifically,
more fun to watch, or
why do I? Yeah, I mean, I think it's more fun to watch, and I think it's also you get into patterns of doing the same thing over and over again. And it's just hard to break those patterns, and you establish a subset of people that are doing things, and it's very easy to measure they're getting better. So I think it's a combination of all of those variables.
Yeah, I think if you look back at early CrossFit games, I mean, snatch and the clean and jerk were staples of that. And so when they look, like if I were the one that were programming the CrossFit games, I would look back at the history. And of course I want the history of the sport to influence my decisions in the future, so that there's some continuity and some consistency there.
And you want to show progress.
Absolutely. Yeah. The video of Kalipa doing those overhead squats from or maybe it was
they were snatches and Amanda running across the platform.
Contrast that to Amanda 45 in 2017 or 18.
Way different.
Yeah, just a completely
different world. Yeah. I mean, so I would like both. I think weightlifting is awesome. And I think in order, like from a range of motion perspective, from a technical and like quote unquote accuracy perspective, and from just a raw neural input and ability to stay strong and stabilize your midline, it's a good test. But I think we could do more testing of other strength characteristics, which would be cool to see.
And personally, I like to see more mixing of that with energy system tests and things like that, where I really liked the deadlift, the example that he gave, that the run into the deadlift ladder from 16 or 17.
All right. Enough of that crap. So
one.
if you could program the raw strength test at the games, they say, Kyle, Max, we need your help, dogs.
Caber toss.
What are you doing?
Oh man.
If I got to program just the raw strength, that was the only thing that
you got to pick.
Man, I would do the CrossFit Total 1.
Yeah.
I think that would be the first thing that we did. I really liked that as a strength test.
I like that as well. I might try to come
slippery
up with
wet
something.
platforms, or
No, I think
not in the rain. That was a little sketchy. I might come up with a test that was like a gauntlet style that had a bunch of different little components in it. We've done one on site at a camp once to start to collect data on CrossFit, where we did like 1 minute of a bunch of different movements. It might be cool to do like,
I think I had video of that.
Yeah.
We should put that out.
Yeah. 6 minutes to establish like a heavy lift of something, and then like a 4 minute rest, and like 6 different stations or something. And that way you could actually get a broad subset of tests where you had like CrossFit Total as your first 3, then 2 weightlifting movements, then maybe a heavy yoke carry, or some way to try to get a multitude of tests.
Would you go all the way and test like absolute speed with a broad jump or anything like that?
Yeah.
as well?
I mean, I think that's cool. They did that one time at the CrossFit Games, but they did it underneath the stadium and didn't publish anything about it. And I think like that just shows that, all right, cool. We understand we have to test this, but it's not that cool to watch, and we don't really care about broadcasting it. So maybe they can come up with creative ways to have more broad testing that's a little bit more fun to watch.
I think if they programmed burpee broad jumps across the field, people would troll them forever.
Yeah,
so
true.
that's probably a bad idea.
True.
All righty. We got a Hibasaki. And they want to know, lately I'm finding it difficult to program for myself and my athletes because there's no actual season in place. So I don't have a timetable to work with. What kind of structure do you think works in that case?
I will take this to begin. I think first off, what I have done with most of my athletes who are competitors but don't currently have a competitive season is we just have identified some very clear training targets. What are we trying to improve right now? And let's just chase improvement rather than performance. And when we do have a season again, then we'll start to train. We'll start to focus on performance in the sport and kind of cycle back into a performance phase versus focusing on their limiters in the sport.
Yeah. So
hold on. Did you find it difficult yourself when this all started?
No, I did that.
You just jumped right in.
Straight away. I had that conversation.
Seasoned pro. Yeah. He didn't even.
I mean,
flinch.
I found it difficult. It's not difficult for me to actually write the program, but it's difficult because my athletes and myself are a little bit unmotivated. And also from a logistical perspective, personally, if I'm prepping for the Open in October versus prepping for the Open in February, my training right now is going to look a lot different. So it's frustrating more than anything.
You're telling me you're not just going hard all the time, every day?
I can't take it for a year. The thought process for me is, how do we create some sort of the fun and competitive output that we're missing? And we do that through our throwdowns. And for this next cycle, which people will know about by the time this podcast come out, we put some fun competition style stuff into the throwdown just to give us a little bit more structure to our competitive off season, because we don't know yet. And then once we know, that's when we go through the more detailed planning process. But it's just kind of like adaptability. Like our sport, it's not like this is the first time that we've went through some chaotic upheaval. I mean, it's been going on for 10 years where things have changed and standards have changed and number of people at regionals has changed. Then there is no more regionals. And then so I think it's just another period of time where you're just like, all right, we know ultimately everybody's got to get fit and there's all these skills that you got to get better at. Generally, people get fired up to train for them when there's a specific competition. We don't know what that is, but we know there will be something, and there are people that really care about it. So it'll come back. And in the meantime, just pick some targets, get after them, and pick some competitive communities to be a part of. Maybe TTT's stuff, or if not, then do it for your own athletes and come up with
or even come up with your own metrics. Like say you need to improve your rowing. Well, spend some time developing a 2K row or a 5K row or a 30-minute road time trial. Like create a training phase to target that specifically, keep some touches in the sport and things like that, but create some actual metrics for you to chase and test.
Build some of your own structure.
Even if it's not CrossFit based.
Yeah.
Y'all ready for the next brain buster?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Bryce Warner, different ways to add cyclical and when to add cyclical work.
Did he write it that way? Or
That's how I wrote it.
Okay.
Can you reread that?
Okay. Basically, he wants to know different
or?
ways you could add cyclical work and when.
Okay. So some ways that you can add cyclical work to your training. Number one, I think is the most common is doing some like long, slow distance work in the afternoons. I think that's really common amongst competitive CrossFitters or first thing in the morning. I think
morning cardio sessions, common one.
Very common. I think that depending on the level of the athlete, there's some value to that. I think for a lot of people who just haven't spent a lot of time in endurance sport, there's some real value in just doing 60, 90 minutes of like easier cyclical work at some point throughout the day. But I also think that there's plenty of athletes who aren't going to benefit a ton from that, and that some athletes actually need intensity built into their cyclical work. And for those athletes, it makes more sense to actually maybe dedicate an entire session or entire day to doing like more aggressive, higher intensity cyclical work.
Yeah. So subbing out your Metcons 2 or 3 days a week for basically a cyclical program, like our engine program in the design does that, or you could just go and Google like a 3-day a week 5K program or something like that. I think in order to get good at cyclical work, you have to spend a lot more time doing it than, skill work of double unders.
Do you have any guidelines on knowing, okay, I'm medium level CrossFit, not great, not terrible, not brand new. Do you have some guidelines on how to know if I should add cyclical work? Like put the extra time in to add it?
I think the easiest examples are with rowing based Metcons that you've seen in the open. So if you're getting crushed on something like 15.5 or 20 or 19.1, like where there's a big volume of rowing and you're falling way off the pack, that's probably the biggest quick indication. If you're short and small relative to your competitive field, then almost certainly you'll need extra rowing because you just at such a disadvantage on the machine relative to bigger athletes.
You're likely your cycle rate on things like burpees, handstand push-ups, squats, wall ball
is already fast
and probably doesn't need as much development as.
Yeah. So that would be one. That could be a data-driven one. 2 would be an emotional one. It was like, you hate doing it. If you hate doing it,
probably should do it.
I feel like most people hate rowing and I don't get it. Do you feel that way?
No, I don't hate rowing.
I don't actually.
Okay. I feel like everyone's always bitching about rowing. I'm like, really? It's not that.
Who are you surrounding yourself with?
I guess these weirdos at your gym.
And then the third would be, it's tough with performance-based metrics with like a broad subset of population, because I think there's really good male CrossFitters that probably are only like a 650 2K, but have all the other skills and great strength and stuff to support it, that are well-rounded athletes, but they still probably need it. And then there's some that have like 620 2K rows. So there can be a very broad range. So I think from a data perspective, I'd use the opens or qualifier style workouts as the like benchmark for yourself to be able to do them.
I would also say if you don't have an endurance background, like literally having spent years in an endurance sport, then you likely could benefit from doing some additional cyclical work to build your cardiac output. I think that's something that it doesn't necessarily get addressed training CrossFit 1 hour a day in the gym.
Yeah. Now you said there's other people who probably don't need to be adding cyclical work in. What's some of the signs that
I think he said low intensity cyclical work.
I don't think that low intensity cyclical work is some panacea that's going to make everybody better at CrossFit if they add it in. I think first and foremost, if you don't have all the skills that are required to be competitive in the sport of CrossFit, if you can't do a muscle up, adding cyclical work is not going to get you any closer to doing a muscle up. If your snatch mechanics are really bad, doing assault, a 90-minute assault bike session in the afternoon is just a waste of your time.
Yeah. Strength, power, and speed. If you need to get better at those things, it doesn't really make sense to add cyclical. If you need to improve breathing, long Metcons, dealing with heat, that'd be probably, and maybe absolute speed, like for jumping and double unders, then maybe doing some sprint work on the machines on the rower and the assault bike might be helpful, but that's kind of going down the weeds. I think most people, they're using it for engine development.
I would totally agree with that. The only thing I will add is that I wouldn't necessarily expect your cyclical training to have a direct translation to feeling better in Metcons. Think about it like this. Your cyclical work is there your additional cyclical work is there to improve your performance ceiling. You're still going to have to do long time domain Metcons to learn how to use what you've developed doing the cyclical work. So it's a mistake I've made quite a bit.
The question was about adding it in, creative ways to add it in. So long, slow distance in the morning as a second session, a specific cyclical session 2 to 3 times a week that maybe replaces your CrossFit style work where you're just going in a training phase where you're dropping your CrossFit volume.
My favorite is some sort of heart rate driver before some Metcon interval. So just a quick example might be a 500 meter row where you're ramping up your effort. You're starting pretty easy for the first 100 meters and you're finishing really fast. You're really getting your heart pumping. Go into a Metcon.
Aggressive warm-ups and even longer cool downs would be a great way because you can add 2.5 hours of total cyclical volume to your week if you're training 5 days a week, if you're just adding 30 minutes of warm up and cool down on cyclical machines. And that's a lot of extra training volume. So a 20-minute warm up and a 10-minute cool down.
Yeah, I talked about that in the classroom quite a bit. That's one of the strategies I've used with coaches and gym owners that I work with is adding 10 minutes or 15-minute pops of what we would call EN2, which is relatively low intensity. We'll call it moderate intensity cyclical work throughout the day. Like try to accumulate 30 to 45 minutes of that. So it might be 3 15-minute chunks throughout the day.
Cool.
How do we, like in the design, we have the engine path and that attempts to mix up, adding CrossFit with engine work. How does that work right now currently?
So in the design, we have 2 training paths or 3, but the 2 relevant ones. We got the CrossFit path, which is basically designed with all of the normal CrossFit based movements that you see in qualifiers and opens, regionals when it was, sanctionals, games. Then the engine path, which is all cyclical. And then every Sunday I go through all of the templates and I explain to people how you would combine them and mash them up. So if you are doing the engine and the CrossFit or the strength and the CrossFit, I basically explain take this out, take this, add this together. Those are written primarily under the assumption that you're doing both of the sessions or trying to do both of the sessions. And then I have one template that's trying to combine the CrossFit, the strength and the engine. And that does a lot of removing of everything to combine it into one more well-rounded session.
Word.
Good answer, Max.
Let's see here. Oh gosh, this guy's question starts with question 1.
What's his name, man?
Meaning he has a question 2 somewhere. Gabriel Tungol.
All right, Mr. Tungol.
All right. What do you make of CrossFit's framework for defining fitness as they place it in their spectrum of a wellness versus sickness continuum?
I never really fully understood that. I've seen the model.
Inverted U, right?
Yeah. And they have, it's.
Does the maximization of fitness equate to optimum health and wellness? Is the second part of that question.
Read it again.
The second part?
The second part?
Does the maximization of fitness equate to optimum health and wellness?
Yeah, I don't want to answer this question because my level 1 was a couple months ago and the information is far enough out of my head that I don't really fully remember what the 3 sides of the U are. I know is it sickness, wellness, health?
Maybe.
Yeah. So I don't want to answer a question where I don't have enough of the information about it, but that was actually one part of the level 1 that I never really understood because it seemed like you became less healthy as you became more fit. And I don't know if that's exactly what they were trying to get across or that they were saying if you get more fit, then as you deteriorate and lose your fitness, you'll actually pass through wellness before you get sick. And that didn't really make sense.
I don't know. I'm going to move on.
Yeah. Let's not answer that question and maybe, readdress that at another
point.
Then
let's just jump into this one. Brett wants to know, are you going to reach out to Rosa, the new owner? He's the owner, right?
I sent him an email that just said basically good luck on your new venture. And he responded. Noah had a discussion with him on the phone and said that he would want to talk at some point, but I haven't heard anything. And I mean, I'm definitely down to talk, but I don't know if there's anything
What value are you going to add? What are you going to
I mean,
take away?
yeah, like they have to have clarity on like, I assume he's got to finalize the sale. And I'm assuming the logistics of doing that are pretty big for a company as big as CrossFit and the amount of dollars he's probably spent to do it. And then they need a very clear directives. And then I'm assuming he would come to me and say, hey, I need your help with X, or I want to get your opinion on X. I'm not going to go to him and be like, I think you should do this. Cause like he's running a company and I understand that's a big process to try to do that, especially in a company with that type of a magnitude.
I have nothing to add to that, Chris.
All right. We got a fun one right here. These are the kind of questions we need, folks. All right. In no order, this is from Austin. Top 3 most impressive athlete performances you've seen at the games. It could be a specific event or the entire competition.
I'm going to go with my own athlete, which is probably biased, watching Noah beat Frazier on Mary. And that was awesome. That was impressive on many fronts. All of the elite athletes, but the most impressive thing about it was that he didn't get cripplingly sore the next day. I thought everybody that did Mary, I'm like, I can't believe they prescribed this. Like no one's going to be able to move their arms.
200 pull-ups, right?
300, I think. 15 a round.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they did over 20 rounds, over 300. And he woke up the next day and he was like, yeah, I'm a little sore. I was like, what are you? So that'd be number one.
How were you watching it? You were there in the arena?
Yeah, I was in the arena in the little like coaches section that they mapped out for us, which was nice.
I will say that number 2, I'm gonna put forward a number 2, and I think it was actually
no. Each of y'all get a 3. So you want to go with your
first?
Your first? These don't have to be in order.
I don't know if this would be the first because I do agree.
Just give us 3.
So
no order.
I think number 1 would be Matt Frazier taking close to last in the sprint event in year 1. I don't remember what year it was. And then the next year coming back and dominating the sprint event. I think that the transformation that had to have occurred for that to happen was incredibly impressive and speaks to a massive body of work that went into that.
All right. My next would be Lucas Hochberg's ruck run. The fact that he's a relatively big athlete. I don't know exactly how long the track was, but it seemed like he was running somewhere in the mid to low 6-minute miles with load on and dominated everybody in the field with as a athlete that's well over 200 pounds. That was probably one of the most impressive things I've seen at the games.
All right. I got the next one. It's Jason Kalipa's 2K row into half marathon row from way back.
That was impressive. And then I think I'll just piggyback off of that because it's in my memory was Esslinger holding a 140 and the girls too, like what they held in the marathon row. I think Lucas Esslinger held like a 148 for a marathon. And I think it was Margot Alvarez who won and she was like 205, which it just amazed me. And I was like, I'm not going to sit here and watch this boring ass shit. And I sat in the stadium and watched the whole thing. It was a surprise to me that I actually
sitting up there with you for the majority of that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So those would probably be the 3 most notable, at least that popped into my head right now.
I actually think that I'm going to go on the female side. And I think it was Tia Claire Toomey that ended up passing Brent Fikowski in the swim run from a couple years back.
Yeah. I think it was either her or Christy Arama.
I don't remember who it was, but the fact that like in general in endurance sport, like males have an advantage almost across the board until you extend the distance to ultra marathon distances. And the fact that they literally annihilated the male field and annihilated the female field entirely. Yeah.
I know Tia at last year's games did that with the swim paddle or the paddle swim. She passed the guys and had a little sprint finish at the end, which is so impressive.
That is incredibly impressive.
Cool. So
I'm going to go with Ricky Garrard on that bike event.
That was awesome.
That dude's a hustler.
Yeah.
I know. 2 more years? Yeah. Let's go, Ricky.
Yeah. When will he be back?
It's an excellent question. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm interested.
I want to say 2018 was when he received the ban, right?
Hashtag who cares? All right, let's go to the next.
1 or 2 more.
Let's see here. How we doing, guys? You liking these questions?
I'm in.
All right, leave us a comment on YouTube if you're liking this style so far. All right, so Travis Miller wants to know, thrusters or anything with heavy squats in Metcons destroy me. I can't figure out how to breathe well enough to not just want to die. What am I doing wrong?
I feel you, man. Yeah. Same problem with thrusters. I think, so first off, think about where you're breathing in the thruster. Are you breathing when the barbell's overhead? Are you trying to inhale when the bar is literally sitting on top of your shoulders in the bottom of a squat? Probably pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to take a nice big diaphragmatic breath down there. Then I think looking at breath coordination is going to be another big factor there. Like, are you trying to take a big inhale into the top of your chest and lift your traps with a barbell over your head? Like, are you a high chest breather? If you're holding a heavy barbell over your head and trying to inhale into your traps, again, that's just not going to work very well. So looking at like, can you expand your low ribs when you're breathing? Can you expand your diaphragm when you've got the barbell overhead? And then I think that's where I'll start with the breathing. So Max, you want to pick up anywhere?
He said, what am I doing wrong? I think it's impossible to answer that question because you would need to like go through a consult or go through an assessment or send a video and actually have it broken down, which you can do if you want. Just reach out to info@trainingthinktank.com. But
that is a can of worms. Everybody send a video.
But it could be shoulder restriction. It could be thoracic extension. It could be your hip posture. Like today I played around with widening my foot base to almost a sumo stance when I do light thrusters because I saw Noah do it. And it actually was super successful for me, but I can barely get to depth. Like Mia yelled depth, like 15 times when I was going. And I was like, look, I'm going as low as I can. So either you're telling me it's close or you need to yell no rep because I'm not like, I can't go any deeper in this stance. And then like she said it 3 reps in a row. And I was like, I'm just going to pull my feet in a tiny bit. But from a breathing perspective and from an upper body posture perspective, it made a massive difference. So I think from seeing people do them over and over and over again, and the people that do it well, you need to be able to get into an efficient posture if you're able to do that. And I think positional breathing is the number one thing that you can do to
I think
target that.
With posture as well, a lot of people who do have that overhead restriction, they end up getting overhead by creating some sort of lumbar compensation where they almost like hyperextend their back. You get into that blown out posture, you can't expand your ribs, you can't expand your diaphragm. So there's just nowhere for the lungs to expand. They have to expand to suck air in there. And so again, coming back to it, like that's a postural thing that's going to impact your actual ability to breathe. And then the other thing I think that creates that feeling of like gasping for air is CO2. And if people are building up a ton of metabolic CO2 and not able to breathe it off, not actually able to exhale that air, that can be another big factor. So like, where are you exhaling? Are you holding your breath through the movement? These are all questions that you need to answer. A movement screen would do a lot of that, I think.
Yeah. So what you're doing wrong is if you said, I can't breathe when I'm doing thrusters, like that's what you're doing wrong. If you're holding your breath doing, it's just that the solution to fix that is a complicated can of worms.
Multifaceted.
Yeah.
All right. Send him that video, girl.
Well, it was Travis Mayer, right?
Yeah, but I was just going to say girl no matter what. Travis Miller.
Travis Mayer.
Imagine Travis asked
I know it was Travis that asked it. He doesn't have problems with
here's a juicy one. Lukey DB _.
Lukey DB, man.
_. Thoughts on PED and SARM use within CrossFit, and is it worsening across all levels?
I have no idea how to approach answering that. Everything that I would answer, I think, would be entirely opinion based. So is it getting worse? I have no idea. I have no objective data to say, yes, there are more people taking PEDs now than there were in 2015. I have no way to say that. So I don't think that I want to comment on that with like from a position of authority.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion would be steroids and any sort of physical enhancement supplements that are illegal are very prevalent in everything. I know in high school, people used them to get onto the field that weren't starters. I know people that think they're ugly and not muscular that take them to get bigger. Like you don't need some big external carrot, just like people liking the way they look in the mirror better is enough motivation for tons of people all over the world. And in some places it's not even highly regulated. So it's not difficult to get. Then when you pour in, hey, you could potentially get a 6-figure contract and a big prize person CrossFit. I do think that it's prevalent. Ironically, I don't think it's as prevalent in the cream of the crop as it is in just the general population. I think there are some people, but again, that's just opinion based. I don't really know, but I do think that there needs to be a better system in place for testing, because right now, just if you look at the way they test, it's not that difficult to get around.
Well, I still think, and this is a problem that's been discussed many times, but the fact that people can qualify directly through the open and essentially circumvent a lot of the testing that they would get in a live event, that's a very legitimate problem.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think that speaks to the question. I think there are issues specifically with steroid use and CrossFitters in that building muscle mass faster than you're building cardiac output can create massive issues for people's engines and essentially just, it could potentially ruin people's careers.
Yeah. I mean, it makes jacked bodies that potentially aren't high performing.
And
you see
no
that,
go.
you see that a lot of times too. If you go to an in-person comp, you're like, wow, what is that person? And then you watch them move and you're like, oh, their heart literally can't push enough blood and oxygen into the muscle to make them go. Yeah.
Is SARMs what my boy Ricky was on?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know enough about that to speak to anything on there.
Yeah, we'd probably.
Those are legal though, right?
I think they're technically research chemicals, which puts them in a really, really gray area legally.
Yeah. Can they test? I don't know enough about
they can
the
definitely
biochemical.
test
because it got popped.
Because Ricky got popped.
Yeah.
So you did get popped for the SARMs?
I think so.
It was I remember it's GW50, 5016, and some other stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know enough about biochemistry.
You mentioned body comp issues, so let's go to this one. This is from Tom Guerin III.
The third.
Tom Green.
Yeah,
Tom Green the third.
What advice do you have for an athlete training for sport performance in CrossFit who struggles with body image, aesthetic, and body comp issues?
That's a tough problem.
Make a prioritization. I want to say something like, hey, you got to get over the body comp and learn how to love yourself. But it's like, that's so much easier said than done. But if that's your number one priority, you got to make it clear to yourself that it's your number one priority, because chasing performance for a lot of people will create a worse aesthetic profile. I mean, you got to eat more, carbs. You can't be as concerned with like water retention, and like you have to fuel yourself and doing.
Body's probably more stressed.
Yeah. And there are some people, generally like the cream of the crop, the best of the best, that respond and look amazing while they perform. But most other people are not going through that type of a process for themselves because they're stressed out trying to make it happen. So I think you got to be really clear as to what you want. And then I think the second part of that is realize that the body composition issue is largely in your head and largely something that you got to deal with the psychologist or a psychiatrist, or doing some cognitive behavioral therapy work with yourself and doing some research on the Adonis complex and what potential issues you can get involved with if you really don't like the way you look, because it can be a major problem that also inhibits performance. So I would say get clarity and make a clear prioritization structure. If it's performance, go after that. If it's body composition and loving the way you look, go after that. But don't try to bleed them together, because you just do shit to both of them.
I will say, so I wasn't going to go as deep into that as you were, but I will say there are athletes that I have worked with who have needed to improve their body composition to improve their performance. And if that's the place that they're coming from, then I think the priority is improving body composition to improve gymnastics, to improve cyclical endurance, to improve running. But that's not a body image issue. That's a body composition issue relative to your performance. Like if you're 20 pounds over fat, that fat is not helping you be a higher performer. So losing that fat actually makes you perform better. If you're upset that you don't have a big chest and you're doing a ton of bench press to try to get a bigger chest, and then that's hurting your shoulders, and then you can't do muscle ups and squat snatches and handstand walks, that is potentially inhibiting your performance by over focusing on the body image issue. That's putting your focus somewhere that isn't helping you, which if your priority is performance, then obviously is in the wrong place. I just wanted to point out that there are certain athletes who improving their body composition will improve their performance. Yeah. Even if it means that during the phase of improving their body composition, they can't train with the same intensity that they did before, but that getting to a better body comp position or a better body comp set point will allow them to perform better
or
in the
like
long
putting
run.
on muscle or something like that.
For sure.
All right, we're almost at the hour mark, so let's just end it there. We had a few more questions. We'll do those on the next one. If you guys want another Q&A episode, again, let us know down in the comments. Smash that like, unsubscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Unsubscribe, don't listen to him.
Unsubscribe?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bye.